Lecha is Avraham, which is the exalted wisdom. Av's wisdom, Ram exalted. Yeah. It's a wisdom which is beyond the worlds. Lech Lecha, it should go down into the world as it is, derech mavar, as it were. El ha'aretz asher areka. How do we explain El ha'aretz asher areka, to the land that I will show you? What do we say that meant?
So awesome. You to the land. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to show you to the land. Yeah. Right, because you haven't, the level like yours has not ever been seen before. Go all the way down to the land, and that I will show you. Then you become Av Hamon Goyim. Your name will be called Avraham, which means that you will now be called the father of many nations. What does one have to do with the other? Why? Because he got the bris. Does he suddenly become the father of many nations? That's a question.
The bris is like a circumcision of all things, so lets the light flow through completely.
Okay, so why does he become the father of many nations? After that?
Right, what was that?
Because he got the hay in his name after he had the bris.
Right.
So the hay represents Avraham. Before he was just the Av of Aram, right? There was a Ram.
But why was the
So now he becomes the Av Hamon Goyim with that hay.
Maybe we say that there's darkness and then there's light and there's Hashem is one, like the pasuk, and so the light is like Avram, and so like the light's on for everyone.
Okay, we said that once this level of chokhmah is in the world, it allows for the birurim, for the refinement of the world to take place. Okay. Until this wisdom was in the world, until this light was in the world was unable to be affected by spirituality, basically, right? So the presence of this, we said, is like the Torah, basically. He's the beginning of the descent of the Torah into the world. The Torah, which comes to refine the world and basically enable the world to be turned into godliness, right? Because you take a mitzvah and you can transform the world into godliness. So that was unable to be accomplished had Abraham not begun that process. So he is basically like a little Torah in the world. He comes, it's the first mitzvah. Basically the milah itself is the first time that anything like this has ever happened to creation, that you can come and take a physical object and transform it into godliness. That was his own member, right? His bris was the original mitzvah of that nature. So not only did it happen to him, but through him, it's like that he was given the brachas, as it were. It was all transferred over to him. Through him, now because Avraham, because exalted wisdom was now placed into the world, there's an ability to refine the entire world, basically. So in fact, he became the father of many nations. He went around and refined essentially the whole world in his generation up to a certain point. It obviously wasn't the same level as refinement that would later take place in the Torah, because it only had one mitzvah, etc., etc. And it wasn't a mitzvah, on Har Sinai, had a different gedder a little bit. But nonetheless, that process started there. So you understand why he's called the father of many nations? Because now the nations can be converted to Judaism, as it were. They can be.
They couldn't before, right?
You following or no? Levi?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You can uplift the sparks.
You can uplift the sparks. Yeah. In short.
Now
the sparks can be uplifted because he's bringing essentially the Torah or some version of the Torah. He's the beginning of the Torah into the world. So now there's an agent through which to elevate the world. Before that happened, wisdom of God was in one place and the world was in another place, and they had no way of connecting with each other. Okay, so going on, the second little paragraph here in the page Yud Aleph. Behine lefi zeh, accordingly, he yurida lios me Avraham. According to what we said, it's a descent to go from Avram to Avraham. Right? That's going down. So he's going from his exalted place down into the world. So what's the real idea is Mashnis Vasif lo hey. This that he grabbed an extra hey in his name. Where does hey come from? Hu hey ilah. This is the higher hey of Hashem's name. You don't have a sefer? Why is that? Can you guys share maybe?
Yeah, sure. Here, buddy.
This is the higher hey of Hashem's name. Yud Kei Vav Kei is the first hey. Uva Zohar, Isa, Gabi Eved Halevi, Va'avad Halevi Hu. Right, so there's a pasuk that says Va'avad Halevi Hu. The Levi will serve him, basically, the Kohen. But in general, the pasuk is going on this Indian that the Levi dafka reaches a level of hu, right? V'avad halevi hu. So the Levi serves a level of hu. And what is hu? Hu is sort of like the, as he says here, hu da atika. Hu represents atik. Okay, so meaning to say that the Kohen gets to a certain level, the Levi gets to another level. Avad halevi hu, and the service of the Levi gets to the level of called hu. It says that hu is an acronym for hu ushemo echad. Right, he and his name are one. It's like this level basically of Hashem's Urin Sof, the Atik. So
wow.
Okay. What does that have to do so with anything so far? We're going to get there. So the idea is that the level of hu represents Atik. Shehis galus Atik hu bebina. And the revelation of Atik is specifically found in Bina. That's the connection with the Levi. The Levi is, so to speak, on the side of Gevuros, and the Kohen is on the side of Chesed. So on the side of Gevuros, if you go to like the source of the Gevuros, it's Bina. Yes? So the idea of the Levi, the left side of Bina in particular, it gets up to the level of Hu. Va'avad ha-Levi dafka Bina Hu. Meaning what? The Bina is the first hay of Hashem's name. So that is the level that Avraham achieved, basically. This level,
which is like bring it down.
What's that?
He's like bringing it down to the world, like Yerida, Bina.
Well, we're saying that the whole thing sounds like a Yerida.
Yeah.
But we're ultimately going to say that really it's an Aliyah at the same time. Like that's exactly what we're going to get into. So the idea of coming down into the hay is, yes, that's the Yerida, right? You're going from the Yud, which is Chokhmah. He had Chokhmah.
Right.
He's going down into the hay.
Yeah.
But the point we're trying to make right now is that the hay has a special quality that it holds Atik. Because this is the point we just said, that he's galus Atik hu bebina. The revelation of Atik is specifically in Bina, Dafka, velo b'chokhmah. And it's not in Chokhmah. So first of all, what's Atik? Atik is Pnimius HaKeser, right? Atik is in Keser itself. You have Arich and Atik. Atik is the innermost aspect of Keser. So in short, what does that mean? What do the two levels of Keser represent? So one is sort of the lowest part of the Creator. That's Atik. And the lower part of Keser is the highest part of the creation. Yeah? So even though it's the part of the creation which is itself above the worlds. That's Arich. And then when you go one step higher into Atik, that has nothing to do anymore with the worlds. It's not even the highest part of the worlds. It's now the lowest part of the Creator himself. Somehow the Creator himself gets himself involved in being contained in some kind of a sphere which is not yet called the source of the world. That's called Atik. So it's like a blowing out of the Kalim type of level.
Atik is the higher one.
Atik is the higher one. And what we're saying is that Atik finds a place that he can reside inside of the worlds, which is great. That's basically why the Creator puts himself into something called Atik, because ultimately he does want this level, which is completely beyond the worlds, to find a place in the worlds. But where does it find a place? Not in Chokhmah, but specifically in Bina. So the idea, and why is that? He'll explain, but basically the idea, I'll explain, I guess, outside first. Does anyone have any idea how that might be? Why is it that the highest levels invest themselves specifically only into Bina and not into Chokhmah?
The highest levels.
The highest level, the level of Atik. If Atik wants to express itself and sort of sit somewhere and be, it cannot do that in Chokhmah. It can only do that in Bina.
Oh, Bina is it's pretty distributed and expanded.
Maybe because Hakma doesn't have any yeshus to it, and Bina does. So that's why I can sit in Bina.
Yeah, I mean, you're both basically saying the same thing. In other words, the idea of Bina is that it's the full expression, right? Chokhmah is that something is not yet expressed. So since Atik is the full expression of Hashem, so basically it doesn't have it's like, he's going to say it's like connected with the Indian of Tainug, right? If you look at it, he's going to base the whole thing on Tainug, which means pleasure. If you look at it, the two levels of Keser are called will and pleasure, right? We call them Atik and Arich, or Arich and Atik, but the sort of the qualities that they bear is will and pleasure. The highest level of Atik is associated with pleasure.
Oh, wow.
And Arich is associated with will.
Wow.
So where can pleasure reveal itself? There has to be some kind of like an expansion in order to experience pleasure. When something is in its tiny sort of unified point, there's no expression of the thing, and therefore even though you might have it, you don't have like the fullness of it because it's not yet expanded in a state of where pleasure can sort of reveal itself. Bina has this notion where it expands into length, width, and depth, like it has this notion of basically showing and feeling what it is. Whereas Chokhmah, as you said, it's too bittul to show pleasure.
Yeah.
And so therefore, when it comes to Atik trying to find its way in the world, it passes through Chokhmah. You can't get to Bina without Chokhmah, but it will never express itself in Chokhmah. The first place it sort of comes to be and expresses itself is in Bina, the higher Hey of Hashem's name. So that is actually what Avraham got. So what are we going with this? We're saying that even though he went down, because he's trying to bring the light of Hashem, the light of Chokhmah, he's trying to bring it down to the world, sounds like a Yerida. In reality, in order to get down to the Hay, it's really because he went up to the Atik in order to go down to the Hay. In order to reveal godliness in the Hay, it's only because the source of the Hay, which is Atik, basically came and settled itself down in the Hay. And so when we say that Avraham sort of went down a level, he only was able to bring godliness down another level because it shot up to its source in Atik in order to express itself in Bina. And so really it's going up at the same time. In other words, in order to go down, you have to go up deeper into it in order to find the source which enables it to come down.
Did you already go over what Atik is? I think I'm
There's two parts of Keser,
Oh,
and Atik is the higher part of Keser.
okay.
And we said it's like it's the lowest part of the Creator Himself, whereas the lower part of Keser is called the highest part of the world,
Why is Atik not the highest part of the world?
because it's not part of the world at all. It's part of the Creator still.
Okay.
There's a story, by the way, where Shliach was on an airplane, and he's putting tefillin on everyone in the airplane, and a Goyim asked him, why don't we put on tefillin? And he said, because you're the highest part of creation. He said, well, we should put on tefillin. He said, yeah, but we're the lowest part of Hashem.
Yeah, I heard that story somehow.
Yeah, you heard that?
You know, Bolton story.
Okay. So Hada Atika, she's Galus Atik. Okay, so who this level of Avodah Levi, who the Levi gets to the level of who, which is Atik. She's Galus Atik, who bebina. That where does Atik get revealed? In Bina, which is here representing the Levi. Dafka below b'chokhmah, not in chokhmah. You can't reveal Atik in chokhmah. It won't show itself there. Ki chokhmah nikra Eden. Why? Because chokhmah, as we said yesterday, in the last mimer, is called Eden, right? Not the Garden of Eden, but the Eden itself is called chokhmah. Ve'ein sham his galus Atik. And in Eden itself, there's no revelation of Atik. Ki Atik hu makar hatainugim. Because why? This is what we just said. Atik is the source of all pleasure, like the aspect of Hashem's delight in Himself. So it's the source of all delight. V'tainug hu lamayla min ha-chokhmah. And pleasure is above chokhmah. Why? Chokhmah atzma shehi bechinas nekuda adayim. Because chokhmah is still merely a point. Lo bal yidei giloi. Right, therefore, Atik, pleasure, cannot be revealed in a point. A point doesn't have any expansion, doesn't have any sort of, revelation. Pleasure comes with revelation. Put it like that, right? Pleasure is associated with revelation. If you don't have the thing sort of revealed to you, you can't really take pleasure in it. So Chokhmah is a state of intellect which is beyond revelation. You don't know what it is. It's sort of all packed up into like a closed box, which is sort of like this lightning flash. You don't get the geschmack of it, like lightning. You can't really appreciate it. It comes and goes in a second. You can't like sort of have the geschmack of it. And so therefore, since Atik is the source of all pleasure, it won't reside and allow itself to open up and reveal itself in Chokhmah, because nothing really reveals itself in Chokhmah. Chokhmah contains everything but reveals nothing. So you want it to be revealed, you have to go down to Bina. Lo ba'yidei giloi ki'im al yidei Bina. It only comes to revelation through Bina, which is called Nekuda Behechala, which is called the point in the palace. In other words, the Chokhmah Bina is called a point and a palace. Meaning the point comes to revelation and like sort of resides in this palace. In the point itself is not yet it doesn't have a kli to hold it and to show what it is. So you need the palace, the source of pleasure is like the palace, in order to see the revelation of what the chokhmah really is. And therefore, when you're seeing the bina, you're really seeing atik. Because the way that chokhmah, which is this point of something which is impossible to show itself, basically, it's a point which contains everything and reveals nothing, how does it suddenly reveal itself? It's like a contradiction in terms. The whole idea of chokhmah is that since it has everything, right, and contains everything at once, if any of those things would show their private existence, and another thing would show its private existence, they would seemingly come into conflict. You see what I'm saying? So the way that the chokhmah gets away with holding everything is that it holds everything in such a way that nothing expresses itself. Right? So everything's in a state of unbelievable bittul, and therefore you can have everything. Right? But if you then want to show everything, that's maybe asking too much. You know what I'm saying? How can you have everything and show it too? So that's what you need atik for. Right? Chokhmah on its own can't do that. And therefore everything stays in a state of bittul, no expression, no pleasure. But if you draw from atik then has this ability to allow all the things in chokhmah, which is everything, to also express themselves, which is like a miracle, basically, that you can have everything and everything can be in a state of expression. And that's where pleasure resides, and that happens outside of chokhmah when chokhmah pushes itself through to bina. So when you're seeing bina, what are you really seeing? You're seeing the work of atik that sort of like came in to save the day and allowed this infinite experience to happen. So when it says Avraham has the hay of Hashem's name, what does he really have? He's got atik. Because for the hay to even come into expression, it's because it was the work of atik at work, in order to enable this infinite expression to actually show itself.
The manifestation of it.
And again, what is that? That's the Torah, right? The Torah is basically a everything, which at the same time sort of shows itself and comes into a form of expression, which is a kind of like impossibility, right?
How does that work with our like daily lives? Like that we should be the Icarus and Meister type of thing? That would not just stay in Hakma?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. The idea is Lech Lecha, the lesson is go down.
Yeah.
In other words, that when you try to express the Torah outside of yourself, which might look like a step down, and you're like, why should I bother? Mm-hmm. You have to know that in order to get and express the Torah to the lower stage of reality, which yes, albeit it is a step down, but in order to get that step to happen, it requires actually going to a much, much higher place than you were when you started. So it's all the worth it to go down. Mm-hmm. Because in order to go down, you need to draw from, you're really going up.
I didn't get this whole thing. What happened? Would you have to take from above to make yourself go, what? In the middle, I kind of like lost it. There,
yeah.
I don't know what. It's a whole complicated thing. Okay. Alright.
No, we're going to have to go through it again there. I don't think you're the only one. Is everyone following this or not really? No? Eliezer, you following this?
You can make like a light switch. Electricity, it comes like a flash. You got to turn the switch on to make it go out. Like the light switch is like the bina. It goes out to have light. Otherwise, it comes somewhere in that box, but you can't get it from that box. You got to flip it on.
Levi, how you doing in there? You following along or not so much? Levi?
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying or no?
I think I lost you somewhere a little bit ago.
Shalom Yisrael, how you doing? Following? No? Okay, good.
I'm gonna try to.
Wow, I thought it was just me.
Let me try and recap myself here. All right. Essentially, what we're saying like this: Avraham represents godliness expressing itself into the world. Avraham with a hey. Avram was godliness which had not yet the ability of expressing itself in the world. Yes? Okay. So why does the hey represent his ability to express itself in the world? Because it's like Yud K. Avram represents Chokhmah, and the hey that he has is him going down to Bina. Mm. Yeah? David, can you back up a little bit? You mind sitting straight so I can see everybody? Thanks. Yeah? So this is the idea of him going down to Bina. So we're saying what? Avram's just going down? right? So no, it's really, in order to go down, you have to go up first. Because what we're really saying is that how do you get godliness, which again, let's describe chokhmah for a second, okay? Chokhmah is the idea that it cannot really express itself in a physical world, seemingly. Because it's so much godliness, it's like, for example, every single thing happening at the same time, right? And so the only way you can have every single thing happening at the same time without like destroying all the vessels and like breaking up everything and like basically having like a shattering is if everything is in a state of non-being, right? I have no problem having 10 things being in the exact same place so long as none of those things have any expression. Then they can for sure all sit there happily. You follow me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to try it? Put these things in the same place. Right? You can't because they have expression.
Right.
If you take away their expression, you can put them in the same place, no problem.
Right.
That's called chokhmah. Chokhmah is like this very, very high godly level, which is slightly before the worlds in a certain sense. It's the first sphera, but it's like the first. And the idea is that everything is in a state of bittul. Chokhmah, everyone knows, means bittul, right? Koach ma. So what's the idea? That it contains everything. Kulam b'chokhmah asisa. You made everything with the sphere of chokhmah because chokhmah contains everything. But the problem is that if you're going to take everything at the same time, how can you put everything in one kli? It's going to shatter. So there's this little trick. You can have everything in a state of non-existence, and then you can have everything there, no problem. And that's what chokhmah is. So that's what Avraham is. He's like exalted wisdom, the knowledge of everything. But the problem is, fine, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't then put that and reveal it. If you reveal it, you wind up with something shattering, right? And that's why there's a huge distinction, basically, between chokhmah and bina. What bina usually is when bina comes out, again, this is the difference between hislavshus and malvar again. But let's put those terms on the side for a second and just talk with the words external and internal. What usually comes out of chokhmah in order to make bina is a very, very, very external level of chokhmah. You don't get like the nuts and bolts of chokhmah, because if that would happen, it would be pandemonium, it would be crazy. So you get a little ray that comes out of chokhmah, and if it's just a ray, it's not the full totality of chokhmah, so then it can bring things to expression, one thing at a time, taking its place, and not bumping into each other and making madness. And so usually there's a massive, massive tzimtzum between chokhmah and bina, because if you're going to start bringing things out and they're going to have length, width, and depth, which is what the hay represents, the 3 lines of the hay is like expression, so then it's for sure not going to be the same exact way they're found inside of the chokhmah, because that would be infinite expression of length, width, and depth, and it would be a contradiction. So you have to make a huge contraction so that what you do wind up expressing from the chokhmah winds up being something very, very small and containable comparatively, so that it can actually show itself. You with me, Levi?
Yeah.
Okay. Now Avraham pulls off a great trick, because what he does is he brings the chokhmah as it is. Not just a ray comes out of chokhmah to make bina. He brings the full totality of chokhmah and reveals it, which is not supposed to be able to happen.
What do you do?
He brings the full totality of chokhmah, which is basically everything.
The nuts and bolts of all chokhmah.
Yes, the inner essence of chokhmah, like, in other words, every single thing that would ever be, right? And somehow, even though if you reveal that it's supposed to create chaos, he's able to somehow reveal it as it is, unchanged and uncontracted, and that's the whole miracle of going from Avram to Avraham. That's what he did. That's what Lecha is. He's able to bring the chokhmah state, which is a state which is basically not able to be revealed, and he reveals it nonetheless.
Without going through bina.
No, well, he goes to, it's a panimi, it's a new type of bina. It's like a bina we've never seen before. A normal bina only gets a ray of the chokhmah. But this is a type of, Avram's type of bina, it's like the true hay, which is able to take the full totality of chokhmah and reveal it as is. So it's basically revealing the infinite. What's the problem with usually revealing the infinite? If it's infinite, how can you reveal it in a finite place? And nonetheless, that's exactly what Avraham does. He takes the infinite and he finds a way to reveal it in the world, which is a finite place.
Right, because he kept the name. He kept the Avram, but he put just a hay inside.
He puts the hay inside.
He could have just changed the whole name.
Okay, that's a cool point. So he has the Avram, and it's revealed.
Right. You have the bina.
You follow this,
inside of
lady?
Yeah, so the whole thing is that it's just on a massive scale.
Okay.
That's insane.
So it's revealed through
Well-
Bina in the physical world. That's where we see it.
A new Lima.
And that's where it showed itself in the physical world. In Bina.
Right. Chokhmah, it basically stays in its state of bittul. It's not really a visible thing, because Chokhmah is a point. It's everything contained in a point. Right? So usually when you want to see what that point has in it, you never get to see the totality of it, because that's like everything in one place. You can't have that. So you see ray of Chokhmah. You just see like a little drop of the totality, sort of coming out one day at a time, one moment at a time, whatever it is. You see like a little tiny ray, and you see thing after thing after thing, not everything. You don't see the totality of Chokhmah, usually. And what Avraham brings to the table is that he's revealing the totality of Chokhmah. He's basically bringing the state of everything and all like Orein Sof, out of a state of concealment into a state of revelation.
Through the Mila?
The Mila is the tool for that. You following this? And now what's the trick? How does he do it? Because there's a place called Atik. Okay? Atik is basically God. And in that place, you could do anything you want. Right? In that place, the contradiction of having infinity and revealing that infinity in a finite place is not a problem for God. He can do that. The problem is the world can't really handle that. So if you go up to Atik and you're able to somehow get Atik to come down to the world, so you too can have infinite in a finite place.
Wow.
You follow me? And that's why even though he's going down to Bina, which usually creates just a tzimtzum of Chokhmah, and just like a small ray of Chokhmah, the normal Bina is just a small ray of Chokhmah, but the special Avraham Bina is that he goes up to Atik and therefore brings out a state where he can reveal Chokhmah as it is into an express place. So that's really what you're seeing when you see the Hay, is you're really seeing the Atik. You're seeing the place where Atik finds a place in this world to express itself. And the first place that ever was the Hay of Avraham's name.
Whoa.
You following now?
Yeah.
Wow. Is that also where the Klipo siphoned from that place too? Because it's like above good and bad?
At that point, no. The klippas really get into the regular state of chokhmah. Like in other words, when you contract chokhmah and you bring out literally finite expressions from chokhmah. So right there is a huge tzimtzum at that point. Like once you have finite expression of the infinite, they are.
In the attack.
Well, then they have basically a. In other words, what makes the chokhmah come out, so to speak, into the right place is if you do good. Let's say if you do the right thing. If you don't do the right thing, it draws out more and more concealment of the chokhmah. So it basically creates klippa. Okay, let's.
Did Avraham do this? Like, did he in some way went and got the attic and went down, or they just attic came down?
No, he did it. He worked for 99 years, being like a perfect tzaddik, the greatest man that ever lived. And after that, 99 years of being Avraham Avinu,
He managed to go to attic.
He was Lech Lecha to the point that he arrived at this level of achieving this blessing of the bris. The bris is ultimately what it was. He couldn't do it by himself. He needed a special commandment from Hashem, because a human being or creature cannot reach this place without godly intervention. But he wouldn't have given him that godly intervention unless he was the man that he was. We, on the other hand, are just lucky fools. We are born as Avram's children, so we have this level of atik like anytime you want to do a mitzvah. It didn't exist in the world before him. So he was literally earned the first mitzvah.
Wow.
So did the Mila allow him to go there and get it, or the Mila was like the whole thing itself?
The Mila is the thing.
It's the whole thing, right? It's the whole opening of
Right.
It makes
Huge.
sense too. That's the covenant between Avram and Hashem, because it's like connecting.
Right.
We spoke about
nice point. Alright, that was like the
representing Judah.
Yes. Avram's tent is basically Bina.
Connection between
And he was
them.
like the
It's like,
mouth of the tent.
Right, so he's like
Covenant of
basically
I am giving
opening
you
up the
my
Bina,
being
basically, and
in
bringing
your
out
world.
all the information,
The
right?
whole world started there.
Or you could say like
Before that, it was
yeah.
like
You could. I would say more than that. I would say it's more like
Yeah.
Open on all
connection.
sides, so there'd be no-
crazy.
and then this covenant, like
yeah. I don't know. It doesn't explain exactly how it works, but you have to sort of use your imagination there.
It's intense.
The chesed of Avraham, which is really like a throwback from Chokhmah, but now in a revealed state, is now coming out through the Bina. That's the idea.
How does Chokhmah transform into Chesed?
So Chokhmah and Chesed are on the same line, right? Basically, if you go down from Chokhmah straight down, you get to Chesed, right? On the right side.
Oh wow, yeah.
Look, you have Chokhmah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so in other words, it's the next, when Chokhmah expresses itself, that's how it expresses itself, as Chesed.
Oh.
Oh wow.
Right? It's just, it's Chokhmah like down a stage.
So he embodies Chesed and it's coming from the Bina, which is physically represented as 10.
Yeah,
So there's no Chesed without Chokhmah.
you could say that.
And being is glory.
Right.
That sounds weird because like usually Gura would be something like restriction, like holding down, and Bina is like the complete opposite of that.
No, Bina is not the opposite of that.
No?
Bina is basically, it's a concentration. Bina comes from the word hisbonenus, right? Where you like sort of put yourself into a state where you have to contract yourself and put yourself in one place for a while. It's a restrictive power. It ultimately winds up bringing
More things, but
yeah,
it's restrictive power.
expression, but it's ultimately it's a tzimtzum.
Right. Wow.
Okay, so wait. Does everyone understand everything so far? Shalom Yisrael, you following? So what really the point that comes out of this is that the Hey of Avram's name is really it's an expression of the Avram into the world, and that is made possible only by the Atik, which doesn't find Atik cannot express itself in Chokhmah, only in Bina. Okay, I think we understand. Listen, not the simplest thing to understand, but
in the Chokhmah it can't because what?
Because Chokhmah is a nothing. It doesn't have expression. And what we're trying to say is that basically godliness can be infinite, but also expressed at the same time. So in Chokhmah, you don't have that notion of also expressed at the same time, because Chokhmah is dafka a state of non-expression. Chokhmah is everything in a state where it's not
Expressible.
it's not showing itself, right? It's everything in a nullified state.
But if it's Atik, then why would Atik not be able of doing it in Chokhmah?
Because that Chokhmah doesn't have it's missing a quality basically of
Right.
revelation.
That
Right, so
which Bina does have, right?
So Bina has that quality. So Bina basically what happens is you draw down the aspect of infinity into a state of revelation. That happens in Bina.
So it's not better to say that Atik is more fitting in Bina and Atik are more fitting and less fitting for Chokhmah than saying like it's just not possible, because like what it does to Bina is just like expands its quality, doesn't make anything necessarily new.
What?
Okay,
I think there are two parts of like
I thought I was like flowing there.
I think the Hakma is drawing it down. Like you need the Hakma to be able to bring it down into the world, and then the Bina is expressing it.
Right, but
Right?
since it's Atik, it could do anything. So
Okay, but the place where Atik resides is only in Bina because Atik is essentially pleasure.
And right.
And Chokhmah is pleasureless because it has no expansion. It's bittul. So the first place where like you have an availability for there to be like a pleasure sensor in the worlds is in Bina. Right? Because there's an expression there. Okay, so let's go on. We'll get a little bit more clarity here. We're turning the page. So we're saying that this process of expressing yourself in Bina, he calls it here a few things. Nakuda behechala. It's called the point in the palace, as we said. It's also nekeva tsoviv gever, that the woman surrounds the man. Right? There's like a kind of a pasuk that the woman surrounds the man. Same idea, that basically the woman is sort of the expression of the man. Same idea as like the seed, right? You have a seed, and inside the woman dafka, the seed comes to expression. So even though the man, this is a good example basically, the man has the whole child in one place, one drop, no problem. I got a whole child here. But at the same time, what do you really have? You have a seed. It's like nothing. You've got nothing there, right? So if you want to take the actual, if you want to see the essence of what you have, and it should come to revealed, you can have like pleasure from it. It's an actual thing. It requires the woman's touch, basically. Even like in other words, let's say birth is like the miracle of reproducing your own self somewhere else. It's the essence, right? You're basically making something from nothing. Okay, but the idea is that when you have the man's contribution, you have everything, but you don't really have anything yet because you have everything in a state where it's not yet expressed. So the woman adds the idea of expressing it. Now it comes to a state of expression. So there's the totality of reproducing yourself. In other words, the real totality of reproducing yourself is not just that you have all the potential elements, but that those elements actually come to express themselves, right? And so therefore the woman, or Bina, is the main ingredient, as it were.
Or the soil, or the seed.
Yeah, same idea.
Like the oven, baking the cake. It's going to be ready later.
Right.
The cake goes in raw. Then it
Right,
comes out,
right.
you know,
And again,
later.
the oven,
You got a
yeah.
bun in the oven.
Yeah, it brings the thing to expression. So, again, the Chokhmah can't bring itself to expression. That's what we're saying. Ati cannot reside in just Chokhmah alone. Therefore, if Avraham is Chokhmah, he's always sort of, Avram is Chokhmah, he's always sort of relegated to being in a state of non-expression. That's where he was. He was all the infinite wisdom of God, unexpressed. So Dafka, when he got the Hey, Hashem sort of gave him this ability to express that infinite wisdom. That's the real miracle, right, of life. And therefore, everything comes out. Ati comes out.
Do people ever say this Galpe?
Why is that the real miracle?
When you have the essence but expressed, because that's what God is. God is not just the potential essence. God is the potential essence revealed. The everything all at once, right? In other words, it's great that I could say I have an infinite number of angels standing on the tip of a pin. That's a really cool idea. But why don't you show me infinite numbers of angels actually standing on the tip of a pin? That would be even more exciting.
Cool.
You see what I'm saying? So that's the miracle of God actually showing Himself.
Practical expression.
Right.
So Chokhmah is the seed, and Bina is the soil.
Yeah.
Or the womb.
Mm-hmm.
Usually people say their masterpiece isn't like the thinking part of it. It's like the expression of their work. Like
It's really the
writing
expression,
book.
yeah.
That's their
Because
masterpiece.
what great master do you know that didn't ever write a book? Right. At the end of the day, it's what you produce.
Production.
And it's not just, and again, why is that? Because going out and down is not going down. That's where you see a person's true mastery. Is in order to get down, he actually went up higher than Chokhmah. So a person sitting there has all the Chokhmah in the world, he's not actually such hot stuff. Because to get to the real higher than Chokhmah, it comes out by coming down, right? And producing. So again, this is the Indian of Shemaka. Okay, so that the Nekeva Soviv Gever Shemakabeles Ha'aras Ha'atika. That basically the woman is the one who receives a shine of Atik. That's why she's able to surround the man and be sort of higher than the man. Ultimately, this is a very, women-friendly religion. Because what we're really saying is that the women contain the Kli to reveal Hashem's essence, and the man does not. Not alone. Va'inin kenoda, and the idea is of course known. Shliyos hispashtus v'yuridus u'madregas hu dafka al yedei bechinas u'madrega yoser el yona. So let's read that line again. It's an important line. We've been saying it all day. The Indian is that, as it's known, shliyos hispashtus, in order for there to be an expression, v'yuridas hamadregos, and to go down a level. Hu dafka al yedei bechinas u'madregas hayoser el yona. It's only through a higher level, right? You can only go down if you actually go up to get the empowerment to make that move down. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I get it because we explained, but that way of saying it is interesting. It's like, in order to go down, you have to go up.
It's just like anything. You want to throw a ball. How do you throw a ball? Like that? Right? You go back in order to get the power to go forward. It's like that in the world because it's like that spiritually, basically. And the same is true essentially with anything you want to do. If you want to be, let's say, a good musician, you don't just come out and play. You go into a room for 10 days and then you come out and play. You have to go deep inward, up out of the world. The more you go out of the world, that means the more when you come back into the world, you can go further into the world. And this is sort of, by the way, the secret of where I would say the whole movement of Chabad is a little bit misconstrued by most. Most religious sort of Haredim that you ask, misconstrued means misunderstood. It's like Chabad, yeah, they're great. If I'm in China, I can get a kosher meal. That's basically how they're known, right? No, it's a positive thing. Like if they weren't there, you couldn't get a kosher meal in China. But nonetheless, is that what they are? So we sit around here, we don't know about kosher meals in China, we're sitting here learning like the deepest Kabbalah every day. So the idea is that what gives them the ability to go all the way to China and bring a kosher meal to China is because of the unbelievable depth of what it is. You can see how far something extends itself, how deep it is, in order to extend itself so far away. That's basically what we're saying here.
Wow.
What?
So are we talking about going from Chokhmah to Keter in order to come down to Bina?
Yes. We were saying, Levi, that in order for Miftzoim to take place and for it to that we have such a thing that we're like go down, so to speak, leave the base medrash and like deal with the simple Yidden, it's not really going down. The only way you can go down is if you go up first, because you have such a deep philosophy that's underlying it, which is like a strong enough faith to keep you doing sort of this very mundane thing. What drives it is a very, very deep philosophy. That's what we're saying.
Oh.
M'lahavin zeh, heitev. What happened there? We lost a man? You got a man down? We lost a few men. Listen, not everyone can handle the truth.
Great truth.
Yeah.
Great.
L'havin zeh.
It's like the Teva. Going to Teva so that you can then create the whole world.
Yeah. L'havin zeh heitev. So to understand this well, up until now we don't understand this well. Hine kesiv b'shlomo. It says regarding Shlomo HaMelech, v'yidaber 3,000 mashal. It says regarding Shlomo that he spoke 3,000 mashalim.
Whoa.
What?
Now, what does that mean? He spoke 3,000 mashalim. That's actually, you probably don't see what that really is, because it's saying 3,000 mashalim could mean that he gave a book of 3,000 mashalim. They're wonderful. Count them. There's 3,000 of them. That's not what it means. It means that everything that you see in the book of Mishlei, which is the book of Mashalim, it's 3,000 levels down. In other words, he came up with one mashal and another mashal and 3,000 times, and when he finally was all done, the final one, which is really, it has 3,000 stages of development of understanding. That's what every one of his mashalim are. He gave 3,000 mashalim for everything. Whoa. So by the time you see what it says over there, if you crack the codes, you've gone up one level. You're saying you crack that code, you go up another level. It's all contained. What is a mashal? It's basically containing an idea in some foreign entity, like choosing like an object in the world and saying, well, it's really like this. It's like a cup and water in the cup, right? When you're really trying to explain some kind of a wisdom.
Is that mashal number one?
That's like a mashal number one, right? And then you could take something like 3,000 levels to because
you trying to give us mashal number two.
No
one
thanks.
From another, just
No, like for example, you could say it's like Pshat, Dremish, Drush, and so. In other words, the Torah, let's say just in general, it's already like on 4 stages where it's saying one thing, which is really leading you into like another thing, which is leading to another thing. Like it's like it's like Russian dolls, you know. It's like there's when you open one, you get to another case, and you get to another case, and it like keeps having like more and more.
How does one connect to the other though?
Well, that's the thing. It's like one is basically tailor-made to. It's like all the spheres, lights and vessels, right? When you go down from one stage to another, Gevura can't happen unless you have a Chesed first, and Tiferes can't happen unless you have a Gevura first. Each one basically sets the contours to allow the next sphere or the next explanation to now appear. So I know I can't really give you like an example of that so much,
like
but
a cup is full of water. Like that's mashal 1 and then mashal 2, like, and it's bound to overflow. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that like a second mashal of what it is?
I don't know. That's why I didn't try myself. But
It's Mishlei.
And then he drips his little the cup underneath, catches whatever flows through this one.
I guess I'll give you like here, Levi. On a simple level, Levi. On a simple level, we could say that it's. It says like don't go after a wayward woman. Let's say in Mishlei, right? So what does it mean go after a wayward woman? It could be your Yetzer Hara. So the mashal is a wayward woman. What's it really talking about? Your Yetzer Hara. Don't go after the wayward woman. But what's that a mashal of? Like idol worship. Don't go after like a wayward woman. Whatever. I'm just saying it's speaking on many many levels simultaneously.
The river
No, it's speaking on levels like highs to lows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then ultimately, what does it mean a wayward woman? It could start talking about like spheros. It's like bina. If you go into a chitzonius level of bina, that's a wayward woman. You need to go after the panimius level of bina. You know what I'm saying? There's whatever. You can see it on many levels. That being said,
Cool. That was pretty good.
okay, thanks.
That was good.
So 3,000 mashals. To understand our idea, we're saying that Shlomo spoke 3,000 mashals. Ha'in and the idea is kamosha anu roim shechochma, just like we see that. That a wise man, avshio deya davar chochma, even though he knows the subject matter well, ba'atzmo, to himself, afal pichein einu yachol lasbir chochma hi lezulaso. Nonetheless, he can't explain this thing to another person ad shekodem, until before he does shu masbir. Before he explains, he has to connect his mind very strongly, like to itself, lis yashev, and to sort of think and settle how and what he's able to explain, and to send down lamata, below, to his student, b'devarim tachtonim, in lower concepts, lalvisham b'mashal, and to contain them in a mashal, right? So I understand the idea. I know, for example, what it means to talk about chitzonius of bina and panimius of bina. But the problem is that no one around me understands that. So I can't just explain it, because if I say what I know, it's not going to go down a level. It's going to go nowhere. This is a good example, basically. Like Avraham, let's take Avraham, the exalted wisdom. If he would go around speaking his exalted wisdom to all the people of his town, they would not get 1 ounce wiser, because it would completely go over their heads. He didn't bring it into their vessel. So it's basically saying like it's not perceivable to them. So what kind of a chokhmah is that? It's not useful. Great, it's like in its place and it's wonderful, but the fact that it doesn't mix in with the public means that it's not worth anything. It's like spirituality which is unable to permeate physicality. So the idea that he's able to now bring his chokhmah down and put it into the minds of the people around him, he can't just do that. He can't just go down. Because if he goes down and, in other words, expresses what he has, we just described what happens. No one gets it. So for him to go down, he has to actually go up. Meaning he has to think deeply, concentrate, get a little wiser than he was a second ago, find just the right words and mashal to put this deep idea into a smaller kli that other people will be able to understand. And then his chokhmah is utilizable to the outside world. So that's called going up before you go down. But in order to find the kli and the mashal to put it into, it's not readily available to him. What's readily available is the information, and if he says that, no one will understand him. So that's the idea, is to go up, connect himself to his innermost depth before he comes down. Like an artist, you have an idea, you want to paint it, you just paint what's in your mind. It could be that no one's going to appreciate it. If you say like, okay, this is what's in my mind, but how can I bring this out so others will appreciate it? That's a much more difficult task.
But the only problem is we said before that Avraham didn't have any contraction. It was like infinite, just going right into Bina.
No. In other words, it's going down to Bina. The fact that it's going down to Bina means it's going down. It's just, how does it go down? Normally, if something goes down, let's just finish with this. Normally, if something goes down, what comes out of it is the external part, which means that no one really understands. You're not giving out over yourself what you really said. Like, for example, Avraham is walking around, a brilliant person. He tries to express himself. No one understands what he's saying. So he's not really expressing himself. So whatever does come out of his mouth, it's external. It could be misconstrued. Like, he's not giving over the wisdom of God to the people around him. He's unable to express it to them. He's still talking to them, however. So whatever he's saying, they're grabbing it into whatever they understand. It's not elevating or uplifting them. They're just going to take it in one ear and think that it's like what everybody else is saying. That's called just going down, because that's called going down in a external way. The idea what we're saying, that Avram's able to bring the actual chokhmah, what he is, and bring it down, doesn't mean there's not a contraction involved. Because he is bringing it down to the minds of others. It's just that he's able to bring down what he actually wants to say and put it into their minds. So for sure he has to contract it, it's going to go into their minds. But the point is, when it gets contracted, does it change and become something which is now specifically and become something which is sort of on their level, which is the first example, which means they don't really get what he's saying? Or is he able to put into their minds what he really wants them to think? And in order to do that, he has to find like new, interesting ways to say what he already knows, so that they'll, in their perspective, in their world where they're living, they'll be able to like be enlightened by a brand new idea that they've never seen before. He's basically sending like a rocket ship from another planet into their planet and hoping they'll understand. If an alien comes to our world and he has the secrets of the universe, but he just starts speaking in alien talk, I feel like Yom Tov should be here. He starts speaking in alien talk, no matter what he has to say, we're going to be like, oh, I think he's talking about buying a new pair of Nikes, because that's where we are. We're not going to perceive what he's really trying to say. He has to come and figure out how to speak human, put alien information into human language. And that requires him to be a super great alien. Any alien can speak alien. But to speak a human alien, he's got to go up into the secret alien, chambers of commerce there and find the secrets. Right?
And you're being a super alien right now.
You follow what I'm saying? And so that's what I mean, that Avraham gives over so to speak, contracted. It is uncontracted in the sense that he's giving over the truth. But it's contracted in that he's found an interesting vessel in order to...
It's more like translated or enclosed? Or...
Well, okay, let's go back to my original mashal. When a person teaches one person, that person teaches another person, it gets broken telephone. You don't actually ever hear what the teacher said, because you put the teacher's ideas into your own mind. By the time you teach it, it's like, hopefully something has to do with the teacher, but it's really your business. And therefore, the third guy gets it, he's getting what you said, not what the teacher said. Versus writing down something that you're thinking. Where you take the exact letters that are in your mind, you make them contracted, but you've compromised nothing. Because they're the exact same letters of your mind, but you found some new material in which to encase them. So that's what Avraham did. It's called Derech Mavar, and he basically took himself and put it down somewhere else. It doesn't mean there's no contraction. It's still going from Chokhmah to Bina. But the point is that the Bina is able to really hold the real Chokhmah, not some external element of the Chokhmah which never actually gets to express itself.
Okay.
You follow?
Yeah.
And it's safe.
Like
a
home
safe.
run?
Yeah.
Safe?
And a safe.
No,
Okay.
it's like the book. Like the book, it won't change. If it's not written, then you can tell a story to one guy and another guy, and then even both times were different the way you said it. So when
So this is
it stays like
just to wrap it up. This is basically what the Torah is. The Torah that we have is that exact thing. It's the way. Sometimes the Torah is called by Chazal the Mashal HaKadmoni. It's called the primordial mashal. The Torah itself calls itself a mashal. What is a mashal? A mashal is the idea of bringing an idea which does not belong down here, finding some new and innovative case so that it can be understood at this level, but compromising nothing. So what we have in this little arc over here is Mamish, God's mind, that he found a nice little way to speak God's mind to human beings without compromising anything, except he brought it down infinite numbers of levels so that it can fit in a Gashmias case. Avraham was the first person to even attempt that and to accomplish it.
It appears like the Rebbe is like saying like Avraham, bringing that down.
For sure. You think for sure, it goes without saying. I mean, you just look at a generation of everyone in this room, Bali Tshuva. Why in a million years, my parents didn't find it particularly convincing that they should go and change their life and start like reconnecting with the religion of their forefathers? You know what I'm saying? Why? It wasn't really happening. It was a man who stood up and was able to explain to a generation, an apathetic generation, and a disinterested in Judaism generation, who were mamash not looking at all for this, and come and figure out a way to explain to them in their own language that this is exactly what they're looking for. That's what it is. That's what Hasidus in general is. It's like a way to explain God to the Jews who have basically become disinterested in God, and put it into their language again, so they can speak the language of God.
how do you to teach to kids? Like how do I want to just.
But you bring a perfect point. That's exactly what you have. You have to be not just wise. You don't have to understand Hasidus yourself. You have to be super wise to be able to bring it down.
To bring it down there, it's like.
Right. That's the perfect example, basically. To teach to kids is exactly what this means.
Well, I teach like a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old. They're kind of like been through some things. They have like a lot of mashal they can take.
Right,
but
yeah.
like
Well,
when it's a kid, it's like.
Albert Einstein said that you don't really know anything
Until
until
you
you
can
give it over
explain
to
it.
your grandmother.
To your grandmother, yeah.
It's just be brilliant.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, but the funny thing is in the beginning of time.